Hello, my loves. Welcome back to Starseed Academy for another video on this channel. My name is Jenny. Thank you so much for being here. So you might have noticed, if you pay attention, that I've actually been away a little bit and took a break from social media and went home to Canada and had some time with my mom and with some girlfriends there, and really a just very needed break from working and the responsibilities of being a CEO, and just needed to kind of like take a step back. And I want to talk about that today and what happened and why I needed to take a step back. And I just wanted to share that for all of you creators out there, for all of you spiritual starseed entrepreneurs, sometimes it's really important to let others into your story. I know that we can get really caught up with all like teaching and channeling and creating programs and curriculums. But sometimes it's important to also talk about our own path and our own lives and our own selves and let people into that a little bit. And that's what I want to do today. And the reason why is I actually tuned in, as I usually do, to my guides, and I also included the Galactic Federation of Light in this. And I was just asking, like, I could really use some help coming up with a video idea for this week. What does my audience need to hear? I've got the Starseed, the awakened souls in my audience. Like, how can I be of service to them in the best way? And they showed me the headline of this video, and I was like, what? Really? You want me to talk about that? Okay, well, why? Like, how does that help anybody? And and then I received the answer that it really does help people, because not only are there those of you out there that are going to go through the same things as me or very similar things as me, but it also just helps us to relate on this very human and real and raw level too, and to remember that we are here having a human experience, and sometimes it's messy, and sometimes it's painful, and sometimes it's scary, and there's like a beauty to that. There's a beauty to the ups and the downs of Earth and the ups and the downs of being human. And we came here to experience that. And so it's important not to bypass it, right? So I do want to share with you today something that happened to me that feels really big. So, in order to be fair to anyone that this would trigger, I don't want to like drag it out. I just want to tell you exactly what happened. And if it's going to be triggering to you because you've already had something like this happen, then you don't have to watch this. So, the very short story, just so for those of you that I don't want to hurt anyone. So, for the very short story is, if you need to back out, I didn't know that I was pregnant, and I got into a car accident, and I had a miscarriage. And that is like the absolute worst way that anybody could ever find out that they're pregnant. And I just really understand if you need to not watch this if that's happened to you. But it also might be healing in a way, maybe. I mean, it might be healing for you to just hear from someone who's very recently, this was like 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, very recently gone through something like this, and just how it has progressed, how it affected me, and how I've moved through it. So you decide if that is going to be okay for you. Okay, so here's what happened. I was on the highway in the fast lane, and I was driving, and Brian was beside me. And the two cars in front of me had a little collision. And I saw that happen, and I slammed on the brakes, and my car just did not react the way that it should have. There was no anti-lock brakes kicking in. It just like seized up or froze up, and then we just slid really fast right into the accident, making it now 3 cars involved. And when we hit, it was real. I mean, I haven't been in a car accident, I feel like, in over a decade. So you kind of forget how loud it is and how jolting it is, and how you kind of like go into shock a little bit, like you're kind of just like numb feeling. So when we made impact, Um, we hit really hard. It was really noisy, and there was smoke from my tires everywhere. And in the moment of impact, which was a pretty like violent feeling, first of all, I smashed my knee into the dash, which turned into a huge bruise later. But what happened was the seatbelt pulled really tight across my lower abdomen, and I felt this like rushing feeling of warmth. And Brian was getting out of the car already to see if the other people were okay. And then I thought, oh my God, are they okay? And then I went to get out of the car too. And I looked down and everything was just blood, like so much. Like like through my pants, like all the way down to my knees. It was just so much that it was like very strange, not anything like normal. It's not spotting and it's certainly not a period. Um, so I stood up and I looked down and I saw that. So then I just didn't know, nothing was registering. So I was just trying to like cover my lap a little bit as I took a few steps out to say, like, is everybody okay? You know, what's going on? So then what happened was this really interesting miracle because all three cars hit hard and nobody could find any evidence of the accident. There was no marks, there was nothing. And everyone was like so confused. There was an older gentleman at the front and then two younger guys in the middle car and then me and Brian. And these other people were just like, like look like I don't understand. And the young driver said to me like, I don't understand. Like there's no mark, but I saw all the smoke and it hit us so hard and there was this huge loud crash. And I looked at the front of my car, nothing. Back of his car, nothing. It was like the Twilight Zone. There's no way. Like there's just no way. Out of all three, nobody has a scratch on the highway. Like not possible. And no one was hurt. I mean, I was hurt, but I didn't really understand the depth of that yet. But nobody else was hurt. Like there was no insurance exchanged. Everybody was just like, I guess we'll just okay. And then everybody just drove away. It was like so bewildering. Um and so we have to get back to Brian saying like, Jenny, we need to get out of here. We're parked in the fast lane. It's going to get a lot worse very quickly if we don't move. And I was like, okay. So he had to like climb over because he couldn't go back around the car because the traffic was so fast. So he climbs over back into the passenger seat. I get back into the driver's seat and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Like, I feel so responsible. You know, is he truly okay? And he's like, I'm fine. And he's like, are you okay? And I looked down at my lap and I was like, I don't know. And then he saw the blood and he's like, whoa, what happened? Like, did you get cut? What happened? And I was like, I don't even know. So he's just like, let's just pull over to the exit station on the highway to where the bathrooms are so that you can, you know, get cleaned up and figure out what happened. So that's what we did. And, you know, I was in there a while trying to like scrub my pants with like soap and water and put them under the air dryer. It was not pretty. And then I came out, did the best that I could. And I remember like having the beginning of knowing something, but I didn't know what I knew. But I just remember saying the weirdest comment to Brian. I came out and I was like, well, if I was pregnant, I'm sure not now. Like, why would I even say that? Like, I am on birth control. I feel like there's no way, like in my mind, I'm thinking there's zero chance of pregnancy when you're on birth control, right? I've been on it so long. I mean, this is like since I was literally 16 years old. So it's like, there's just no chance. How could that? I figure I can't even get pregnant at this point. I've been on it so long. But I had that weird, I said something like, just to say that out loud. Sometimes you say things before you know that they're true. And anyway, so we were driving on the way to a car dealership. Hope they're not watching this video. We were driving on the way to trade in this car that I've just crashed on the way to doing a trade-in deal. But there was no mark on the car, right? And it was 2 hours away and we were almost there. So it wasn't worth like turning around. And I thought I was okay. I was really shaken up. I didn't want to drive after that. And I kept feeling like teary eyed. I don't know, it was just shock, I guess. And me not knowing exactly what was happening. So we go to the dealership, we do the deal, and I feel so out of body the whole time. Like I don't even I'm not really there, but we do this deal. I really wanted to trade in. Thank God I traded in the car that didn't react well in the accident. Anyway, obviously that was not good. Traded that in and got something new for myself because we've moved to an area where I really need four-wheel drive. We've moved out into the woods and the wilderness. And so I traded that in and um Anyway, we get the new car, we get home, and I really try not to think about it too much. And then a few days later, my cycle started. And when my cycle started, it became very evident that something was wrong because I passed what would have been like the fetus. And that's not something that's ever happened. That's not something that you see normally during your cycle. It was very obvious. um, and also just how much heavy bleeding there was happening. Like I could not even stand. It didn't matter what kind of, I was using, didn't matter if I was using like super, super plus 10, it doesn't matter what was in there. I could not stand without it like rushing out. And so obviously I knew something was wrong. And that was when I kind of like cemented, because I kind of had like the thought that maybe that is what happened with the rush of blood and like that weird comment to Brian. But then a couple days later, when I saw, the fetus and then the heavy, heavy bleeding, I was like, oh. And then I started doing all of this like Google research, which is, I mean, I'm grateful for it, but it was also kind of awful. And figuring out, that I was probably around 3-ish weeks, maybe 4 weeks along from the pictures and the size of it and everything like that. Um, and then, so then I started having these emotions that just didn't feel like mine, like waves of grief. My body was sending me these waves of grief. And it was weird because that's not something that I was planning for or even necessarily wanted at this point in my life. And so it really felt like these emotions came out of nowhere. And I think I said to Brian, like, I don't know whose feelings these are, but they don't feel like mine, but they are. Like, it's like the body knows it's experienced a loss. And I think that maybe hormonally it can send you like grief messaging. So it was really difficult. I think I spent like a whole day sleeping. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I was nauseous and then I was exhausted and then I couldn't stop crying. It was a couple of days of it really being down and out about this. And then I know that this isn't logical, but then there was these other sneaky little thoughts in there of like guilt, like, well, like I was the one that was driving and it's my fault that this happened. And, look at what, what I caused. Um, and I know that that's not fair to myself, but I think that that might be a normal thing to feel when you go through something like this. And that was really hard too. It was all just so freaking hard. And so I took some time before I really told anyone. I think I took like a week or two, and then I finally told my mom. And eventually I told some very close people to me, like two friends and my mom and my mother-in-law, so just four people. And all of them like naturally just tuned in and they all said the same thing to me. And it was so weird how four people could say some of the exact same phrases and words. And I was like, oh, this is something, right? Because everyone kept saying to me, I think you needed to know that you could get pregnant. I think you needed to know that this was an option for you. I think you needed to know that you have that you get to make a choice, that it's not just going to, oh, I guess it's not for me. I think you needed to know, like, and kind of like to open your heart or your mind to this possibility so that you could make the decision and not just kind of have it made for you. But when everyone is saying that to you, like obviously everyone is, really comforting me and saying how sorry they are that that happened. And yeah, like that's literally the worst way to ever find out that you're pregnant. Like there's no words you can say to somebody going through that really. Like you just have to get through it. But then for them all to say, I think you needed to know that this was a possible timeline for you. And I was like, why is everyone saying that? Like that's so weird. Like I don't know. Like that's not I don't feel like that's what I want at this point in my life. So why? So I was kind of just like taking it all in. I told everybody like, I told my mom and then I didn't tell anybody else for like days and then a week till so there was like quite a bit of time in there, but hearing from four people the same thing over a few weeks was like, okay, I think that that's something. And what's really interesting is you're probably thinking right now, why didn't you just channel it? Like, you're this master channeler and this is everything that you teach. Why didn't you just tune in and channel it? And to be honest, I just didn't want to, and I was afraid to, and I felt like my emotions around it were so big that I needed space before I tried to do that, because I was just afraid. Like I just needed time and I just needed space. And so I allowed myself to just go through the grief, just go through the feelings, go through the physical stuff, go through the emotional stuff, just get through it. And when you feel like you want to, the answers will be there, and it's not a rush. And I was telling myself too, even if you'll never find out why, you know that it is divine orchestration. You know that um that you can trust. You know that I trust in my path so much, and I trust in my higher self, my soul contracts, God source. I just trust so much. I have so much faith that it might be okay if I never find out, that I can just trust that it something happened there that was needed, you know? But when I finally got back from my vacation after it had been maybe 2.5 or so weeks since the incident, I did decide to tune in, and I finally channeled the truth. And so what came through from my guides was that there was no soul attached to it, um, that wouldn't happen till much later on, and there was no soul assigned to it either, and that would have happened later on. And that if it for whatever reason the timeline and me and my choices did go through with this pregnancy, that a soul would have been assigned, and that there were quite a few that were happy and willing, but that I hadn't done anything wrong, and that there was nothing, nobody got hurt. I mean, except maybe me physically, but I was healing, and that I didn't have to feel badly about what had happened. And then, if you can imagine, the next message that came through, which really just lined up with what those four women told me, was you needed to know that this was a potential choice for you. And we'd like you to start opening your mind and your heart to this now, and give yourself a year or two to settle into the idea, and then revisit it, instead of just never even looking in that direction, being like, oh, I don't know, I don't know, I don't think so. Instead of that, seeing like how much you grieved for something that you barely knew, and how much you might just be blown wide open with love if you did choose to go through with that. And then it was like, then I kind of felt like just a weight off of my shoulders, because instead of me feeling like this was some closed door, now it was maybe a possibility. And instead of this being like some super negative experience that made me feel terrible, it was just a window of opportunity for me to be like, okay, I have options, right? And so it just felt so much lighter, and I was really grateful for that. And then in that same channeling session, I started connecting with what felt like a soul that wanted to be that, like a spirit baby, that again, nobody was attached to it, but that wants to be, if I choose to in a year or two, wants to be the one kind of thing. And so this little spirit baby was showing me the number 44, which I think would potentially be like maybe the age for me. Um, and was also giving me like that she was would be my daughter. She was female, and giving me her like name. She gave me her full first and middle name, which I don't want to say, and then even like her little nickname that she would want me to call her. And I was just like, how did we go in like literally 30 minutes of channeling, sitting on the couch by myself? Like, how did we go from like grieving to planning? It was just such a turnaround of energy, and in my mood and emotions as well. um and then the weirdest, all the signs, right? And then for some reason, my phone lit up. And so I picked it up, and it opened itself to Instagram. And the very first post that I saw was from Activation Vibration. And it was about how women, in their 40s and 50s that choose to have children live to like 100 years old. And I was like, okay, the coincidence of me opening something to that, like almost saying it's okay, you have time. Like, people are having babies in their 40s, you're fine. People are having babies in their 50s, you're fine. You don't have to have one right now. You can wait, and it can still be okay. And like the door is not closing on you, And I think that as women, that's a scary thought that we're going to lose our choices. Um, and there's so much around, about like, being even just 30 or in your 30s, like, but it's just not true. And I just loved that the message came through. And then the number 44, which you would think, is that too old? But it was like, it felt divine. And then opening to that post that said, oh, women in their 40s and 50s, oh, you're just going to live, like, it like rejuvenates the body. Like, you get pregnant in your 40s or 50s, and there's like this rejuvenation of your body to carry the baby and take care of it, and then you live like to 100. You live like an extra 20 years that you would have normally lived. And it's like the body knows, oh, we got to be there for the baby now, so we got to live a long time. And I just think that was just amazing, divine timing, divine orchestration. um and I just really think that, like, I just have this strong feeling too that this little spirit baby would be just like very gifted, because of what I do, and because I am so tuned in and psychic and on so devoted to my starseed mission, and because I'm with a partner that's also on like a starseed journey and also very, magic. And so it's like, well, how would it not be? And then I started thinking about how like gifted children are really coming through right now. And because there are parents available that are open to that, like not the way that we grew up. So these gifted children don't have to come through choosing this like pioneer path, which is what I call when star seeds have like an extremely difficult childhood because of their gifts. Like that's exactly what happened to me because of my gifts, everything, and clashing with like conservative religious stuff. It just became very traumatic. So like religious trauma and all of this, but like these little gifted children coming through to awaken parents. What? It's so beautiful, and they don't have to choose. I think maybe not all of them, because I think still there will always be souls that choose those kinds of difficult beginnings to lives, difficult childhoods written into their soul contracts, because it pretty much guarantees an awakening, and it really helps you to become, through contrast, learn what you don't want and what you do need. You become a seeker very early on of the truth. And yeah, I just think that these gifted children could come through to awaken parents and just be like so much further ahead, with everything. So I don't know. It's just a lot to think about. And I do like I do the Awakened Kids mentorship. So I mentor already. So right now I have like a little girl that I'm mentoring that is like so super gifted, reminds me so much of myself as a kid. She's like such a natural channeler, and she's so young. Um, but it's just like they're so open and they're so raw with their talent, and it's such an honor. It's my honor to be able to guide her, you know, into being safe with her gifts. Very important. But then into understanding her gifts, expanding them, learning how to use them, putting them into her daily life. Like, it's like my honor to do that. So it's just very interesting that I started doing that, and now this is happening, and then potentially maybe that will be a future reality for me. So anyway, I guess I just wanted to let y'all in a little bit, to my life and some of the things that are happening for me recently, and if it helps somebody, then amazing, right? Even if it just helps one person, or even if it just helps people open their eyes to like the miracles that are happening all around us. And that absolutely was a miracle. There's just like no possible way that three-car collision could have had no marks, not even a scratch. I swear the inside of my car like concaved and then popped back out. It was like so loud, and we hit so hard, and there was no mark. I traded that car in for like a great deal too. So I was like, I don't know. It was just the weirdest thing. So anyway, something really difficult and dark and heavy and very much grief energy has actually like turned into, when I look back on it now, there's a new light to it, and I do feel like it's very miraculous, and I feel just grateful for like the eye opener that it was for me. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I know that this was super personal. I'm actually going to tag up a video at the end here if you're interested in the categories of like gifted children. There's a lot of different categories, you know, like starseed, rainbow, crystal, and I talk all about that in the video that I'm going to put up at the end. So if you want to know more about gifted children, watch that. If you are interested, if you have children and you're wondering if they're gifted, I have like a list of questions that you can ask your child, um, and be blown away. And so if you want that, come find me on Instagram, DM me, and I will send you the link to that. And then, of course, I also have the Awaken Kids mentorship. It's a one-on-one mentorship where I mentor children in their gifts and save, 15 minutes at the end of every call to check in with the parents. What do they need help with that week? What's going on for you? Um, how are the kids pushing your buttons this week? And let's see if we can tune in and channel what's going on with them. And really does make a big difference to have somebody in your corner like that that can see the deeper reasons why things are happening. So anyway, I love you all so much. Thank you so much for listening and for your love and support. I'm sure we'll be pouring in, and I'm grateful for it. And before you go, please remember, listen to your heart and the quiet voice within, because you are so much more than the body you are in. I love you, beautiful star seeds. Have a good day. Bye.